I want you to close your eyes for just a moment and think about the last time you touched money. Maybe it was a bill you paid online, a coin you picked up from your pocket, a paycheck you deposited. Now answer this honestly. What were you feeling? Were you anxious? Worried about where the next dollar would come from? Stressed about the bills piling up? Or maybe you felt nothing at all, just the cold indifference we've been taught to have toward the very substance that flows through our lives like water. Here's what I've discovered after decades of studying the subconscious mind and the laws that govern our reality. Every single time you touch money, every single time you think about it, speak about it, or interact with it in any way, you are planting a seed in the most fertile soil in the universe, your subconscious mind, and that seed will grow exactly according to the nature of the thought you planted with it. If you planted fear, you'll harvest scarcity. If you planted resentment, you'll harvest struggle. But if you planted love, gratitude, and absolute faith in abundance, you will watch your money multiply in ways that seem almost magical to the rational mind. This isn't theory. This isn't wishful thinking. This is law, as reliable as gravity, as certain as the sunrise. And today, I'm going to give you the exact words, the precise formula that when spoken with feeling every time you touch money, will transform your entire financial reality from the inside out. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Words? Really? Can words actually change my bank account? Can a phrase really alter my financial circumstances? And I understand that skepticism because we've been conditioned to believe that money only responds to hard work, to struggle, to sacrifice, to things outside of us. But what if I told you that every fortune ever created, every abundance ever experienced, began first as a thought, a feeling, a conviction in someone's mind? What if I told you that the words you speak are not just sounds disappearing into the air, but actual creative forces that shape the invisible substance from which all material wealth springs? You see, your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between a real experience and one that you vividly imagine with feeling. It accepts whatever you impress upon it. And when you combine words with emotion, with that feeling of reality, you create an impression so powerful that your subconscious mind must bring it into manifestation. This is not magic. This is the science of mind. This is how creation works. For over 40 years, I've watched people transform their lives by understanding this one simple truth. Your relationship with money is entirely determined by what you believe about money in your subconscious mind. Not what you say you believe, not what you hope, but what you truly, deeply believe in that vast, powerful realm beneath your conscious awareness. A man once came to me, let's call him Robert, and he was making barely enough to survive. He worked hard, long hours, sacrificed time with his family, and yet money seemed to slip through his fingers like sand. When I asked him what he thought every time he paid a bill, he said without hesitation, "I think, there goes my money again. I think, I'll never have enough. I think, why is it always so hard?" And I said to him, "Robert, every time you think those thoughts, you are commanding your subconscious mind to create more experiences of lack, more situations where money leaves, more hardship. You are literally creating what you fear." His face went pale. He'd never considered that he was the source of his own struggle. Within 3 months of changing the words he spoke to himself every time he touched money, his income had doubled. Within a year, he was financially free, not because the external world changed, but because he changed the only thing that truly matters, his inner convictions. Let me be very clear about something right from the start. What I'm sharing with you today is not a get-rich-quick scheme. I'm not promising you that you'll wake up tomorrow with $1 million in your bank account simply because you spoke some words. That's not how the subconscious mind works. What I am telling you is this: if you consistently, persistently, and with genuine feeling speak the right words every time you interact with money, you will reprogram your subconscious mind to accept abundance as your natural state. And when your subconscious accepts abundance, it will use every power at its disposal, and its powers are infinite, to manifest that abundance in your physical reality. It will guide you to opportunities, it will give you ideas, it will connect you with the right people, it will dissolve obstacles, it will work tirelessly 24 hours a day to bring your outer world into alignment with your inner convictions. This is the promise. This is the law. This is what I've witnessed thousands of times in my own life and in the lives of countless others. So what are these words? What is this phrase that holds such transformative power? Before I give it to you, you need to understand why it works. You need to understand the principle. Because without understanding, you might speak the words mechanically, without feeling. And mechanical repetition achieves nothing. The subconscious mind responds to feeling, to the emotional tone, to the conviction behind the words. It responds to your belief. So let me explain the foundation. Your subconscious mind is like the richest, most productive soil imaginable. Whatever seed you plant in it will grow. If you plant tomatoes, you get tomatoes. If you plant weeds, you get weeds. It doesn't judge. It doesn't argue. It simply accepts and produces. Now, here's what most people do. They plant seeds of poverty, fear, and lack all day long without even realizing it. I can't afford that. Money is so hard to come by. Rich people are greedy. I'll never get ahead. Every one of these statements is a seed that your subconscious accepts as a command and works to make real in your experience. What we're going to do instead is plant seeds of abundance, gratitude, circulation, and increase. We're going to speak to money as if it were a living friend who loves to flow to us and through us. We're going to affirm with every interaction that money multiplies in our hands, that we are channels for infinite supply, that abundance is our birthright and our natural condition. And the specific phrase I want you to say with feeling every single time you touch money, whether you're spending it, receiving it, seeing it, or even thinking about it, is this: money flows to me easily and multiplies in my hands. I am a channel of infinite abundance, and I bless this money to circulate, prosper, and return to me multiplied. Everything I touch prospers and succeeds. Now, let me break down why each part of this phrase is so powerful, because understanding creates conviction, and conviction creates results. Money flows to me easily. This first statement directly contradicts the common belief that money is hard to get, that you have to struggle and strain and sacrifice to earn it. By affirming that money flows to you easily, you're instructing your subconscious to accept ease and flow as the natural way abundance comes to you. You're opening channels that have been closed by years of contrary thinking. You're giving yourself permission to receive without guilt, without the belief that you must suffer for every dollar. Ease is natural. Flow is natural. Look at nature. Does the apple tree strain and struggle to produce apples? No, it simply allows the life force to flow through it, and abundance appears. You are meant to operate the same way. You are a channel, not the source. The source is infinite, limitless, and it wants to flow through you. Your job is to remove the mental blocks, the fearful thoughts, the limiting beliefs that constrict that flow, and multiplies in my hands. This is where it gets really exciting. You're not just affirming that money comes to you. You're affirming that it multiplies, that it grows, that it increases. This taps into the law of increase, one of the most powerful principles in the universe. Everything in nature seeks to increase, to expand, to become more. A seed becomes a tree. A tree produces thousands more seeds. This is the fundamental pattern of life. By affirming that money multiplies in your hands, you're aligning yourself with this natural law of increase. You're claiming your place in the abundant flow of the universe. And here's something beautiful. When you truly believe this, you begin to see evidence of it everywhere. You receive unexpected refunds. You find money you forgot about, opportunities appear, people offer you things, investments grow, not because you're lucky, but because your subconscious mind, now impressed with the belief in multiplication, orchestrates circumstances to prove that belief true. I am a channel of infinite abundance. This statement is absolutely crucial because it shifts your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who has to chase money, beg for it, or worry about it. Instead, you recognize yourself as what you truly are, a channel, a conduit through which the infinite abundance of the universe flows. Think about a river. Does the river worry that it will run out of water? No, because it's connected to the source. It's a channel. Water flows through it constantly. You are the same. You are connected to an infinite source, what I call infinite intelligence or the universal subconscious. This source has no limits, no lack, no shortage. There is enough for everyone, forever, infinitely. When you claim your identity as a channel of this abundance, you stop operating from fear and start operating from faith. You stop clutching and start giving freely, knowing that more is always flowing to you. and I bless this money to circulate, prosper, and return to me multiplied. This is perhaps the most transformative part of the entire phrase. When you bless money, you completely reverse the typical emotional charge people have around it. Most people curse money as it leaves them. They resent paying bills. They feel depleted when they spend. They grip and hoard out of fear. But all of that creates a vibration of lack that attracts more lack. When you bless money, especially as it goes out, you send it forth with love, with gratitude, with positive energy. You recognize that money is circulation. It must flow out to flow in. The universe operates on the principle of giving and receiving, and they are one movement, not two. When you bless money and send it out with the conviction that it will return multiplied, you set in motion a spiritual law that must fulfill itself. You become like a farmer who plants his seed with joy, knowing that the harvest is certain. He doesn't mourn the seed that goes into the ground. He celebrates it because he knows it will return as abundance. This is how you must relate to money. Everything I touch prospers and succeeds. This final statement expands the principle beyond just money. It affirms that you have the Midas touch, that prosperity and success are your natural atmosphere. This creates a consciousness of victory, of winning, of things working out for you. And when your subconscious accepts this as true, it begins to arrange circumstances so that doors open, projects succeed, relationships flourish, and yes, money flows. You become someone who walks in a different world than the person who believes life is hard and success is rare. You walk in a world where the universe is friendly, where opportunities are everywhere, where you are divinely guided and prospered in all your ways. This is not arrogance. This is claiming your divine inheritance. This is stepping into the truth of who you really are. A spiritual being having a human experience, endowed with infinite potential and connected to infinite supply. Now, I want you to really feel the power of what happens when you speak these words with conviction every time you touch money. Imagine you're paying your rent or your mortgage. Instead of thinking, there goes a huge chunk of my money, and feeling that sinking feeling in your stomach, you touch that payment, whether it's a check or a button on your computer screen, and you say with genuine feeling, money flows to me easily and multiplies in my hands. I am a channel of infinite abundance, and I bless this money to circulate, prosper, and return to me multiplied. Everything I touch prospers and succeeds. Can you feel the difference? Can you sense how that changes the entire emotional and spiritual energy of the transaction? You're not a victim losing money. You're a powerful, abundant being circulating energy, knowing with absolute certainty that as you give, you receive, and what you receive will be multiplied beyond what you gave. This is operating from a totally different consciousness. Or imagine you receive a paycheck, a gift, or you find a $20 bill on the street. Most people would just take it and maybe feel a momentary happiness before the worries rush back in. But you, understanding these principles, you touch that money and speak the words. You impress upon your subconscious that this is evidence of the law working, that money is flowing to you easily, that you are indeed a channel of abundance, and that this money will multiply as it moves through your life. You are not just receiving money in that moment. You are reinforcing a mental pattern, a subconscious belief system that will create more and more experiences of receiving. Every repetition strengthens the impression. Every time you speak the words with feeling, you dig the groove deeper in your subconscious, until eventually, abundance becomes your automatic, natural state of being. You won't have to try anymore. You won't have to force it. Prosperity will simply flow through you like breath flows through your lungs, effortless, continuous, and completely natural. But here's where most people stumble, and I want you to understand this clearly. They confuse repetition with mechanical recitation. They treat affirmations like a chore, like brushing their teeth, something to get through quickly so they can move on with their day. They mumble the words, while their mind wanders to 1,000 other things. They speak without conviction, without feeling, without genuine expectation. And then they wonder why nothing changes. Listen to me. The subconscious mind responds to feeling, not just words. It responds to the emotional charge behind your statements. When you say, I am prosperous, you must feel prosperous. You must wrap that statement in the warm feeling of gratitude, the excitement of receiving, the calm confidence of someone who knows their good is already on its way. Think of it this way. If I told you that someone you loved was arriving at your door in just a few minutes, how would you feel? There would be anticipation, wouldn't there? A lightness in your chest, a smile trying to break through. Your whole body would respond to that expectation. That's the feeling you want when you speak your truth to your subconscious mind. You're not begging. You're not hoping. You're expecting. You're preparing to receive what is already yours by divine right. I've seen people transform their entire financial reality in a matter of weeks, not because they discovered some secret technique, but because they finally understood this principle and applied it with conviction. They stopped treating their affirmations like empty words and started treating them like the powerful seeds they truly are. There was a woman who came to one of my lectures, barely scraping by, drowning in debt, working 2 jobs just to keep the lights on. She shared with me that she'd been affirming prosperity for months, years even, but nothing had changed. When I asked her to describe how she affirmed, the problem became immediately clear. She was saying the words, yes, but her heart wasn't in it. She was speaking prosperity while feeling poverty. She was declaring abundance while her mind was calculating how many days until the next bill was due. I told her what I'm telling you now. Your subconscious mind doesn't respond to words alone. It responds to feeling. It responds to conviction. It responds to the emotional energy behind your declarations. When you say, I am prosperous, but feel anxious about money, your subconscious receives the anxiety, not the prosperity. When you declare wealth flows to me easily but feel the tension of scarcity in your chest, your subconscious accepts the scarcity, not the wealth. This woman went home and changed her entire approach. Instead of rushing through her affirmations like a shopping list, she sat quietly and felt into each statement. She visualized what prosperity actually meant to her, not just money in the bank, but the feeling of freedom, the peace of mind, the relief of knowing her needs were met. She let herself feel grateful as though these things were already true, not pretending, not faking it, but genuinely touching that place within herself where these realities already existed. Within 3 weeks, she received an unexpected promotion at her primary job. Within 6 weeks, she'd paid off half her debt through opportunities that seemed to appear from nowhere, a tax refund she'd forgotten about, a gift from a relative, a bonus she hadn't anticipated. Within 3 months, she'd quit her second job entirely because she no longer needed it. The transformation wasn't just financial. When you're no longer exhausted, when you're no longer operating from a place of lack and fear, your entire energy shifts. She told me she felt lighter, more creative, more present with her children. The opportunities that came weren't magical, they were always there. But when you change your inner state, you suddenly become aware of doors that were open all along. This is what most people misunderstand about prosperity. They think it's about working harder, sacrificing more, grinding longer, but the subconscious mind doesn't respond to effort. It responds to conviction. When you impress upon it an idea with feeling and acceptance, it must externalize that idea into your experience. Let me be clear about something that causes tremendous confusion. When I say the subconscious accepts what you impress upon it, I'm not suggesting you simply repeat words you don't believe. That's empty affirmation, and it accomplishes nothing. You cannot fool your subconscious mind. It knows what you truly accept as true. What you must do is enter a state where the new assumption feels natural, even if only for a few moments. This is why the state just before sleep is so powerful. Your conscious mind, with all its objections and doubts, begins to recede. Your critical faculty relaxes. In this drowsy state, you can slip a new idea past the gatekeeper of reason and plant it directly in the fertile soil of your subconscious. Think of it this way. Your conscious mind is like a gardener who's been trained to pull up certain plants because they were labeled as weeds. Your subconscious is the soil. It doesn't judge what's planted. It simply grows whatever seeds are deposited there. When the gardener is drowsy, distracted, half asleep, you can plant new seeds. By the time the gardener notices them, they've already taken root. This is why bedtime affirmations work. This is why the moments just before sleep are considered sacred in every mystical tradition. You're not just tired, you're permeable. The critical mind that would normally reject a positive statement, I am confident, I am wealthy, I am healed, that mind is nodding off. The gate is opening. And here's what most people miss. The subconscious doesn't just accept suggestions during this twilight state, it amplifies them. It takes whatever you give it in those final moments and works on it all night long. While you sleep, while your conscious mind is completely offline, Your subconscious is busy integrating, processing, embedding those final thoughts into your entire system. Think about this practically. What are most people doing right before sleep? They're scrolling through their phones, absorbing other people's curated lives. They're watching the news, downloading fear and catastrophe. They're replaying arguments, rehearsing worries, reviewing everything that went wrong that day. And then they wonder why they wake up anxious. They're literally programming themselves for anxiety every single night. You are handing your subconscious mind a script every night, without realizing it. The question isn't whether you're programming yourself, you absolutely are. The question is, what are you programming yourself with? When I discovered this principle, I started treating bedtime like a ritual, not a religious ritual, but a practical one, a mental hygiene practice. I would lie down, close my eyes, and consciously choose what the last thoughts would be. If I wanted confidence, I would repeat, I am poised and confident. I meet every situation with calm assurance. If I wanted healing, I would visualize the outcome, feel it as already done, and drift off holding that image. The mind, I discovered, doesn't argue with you at bedtime. It simply accepts. There's a beautiful surrender that happens in those drowsy moments, a release of mental resistance. The conscious mind, which spends all day questioning, analyzing, doubting, finally steps aside. And in that space, the subconscious stands ready, impressionable as wet clay. I began to think of sleep as my greatest ally. Not just rest for the body, but a gateway to transformation. Every night became an opportunity. Not a passive drifting off, but an active planting of seeds. Here's what I learned. The last 5 minutes before sleep are worth more than 5 hours of affirmation during the day. Why? Because you're bypassing the gatekeeper. You're speaking directly to the power that runs your life, the subconscious mind that controls your heartbeat, that heals your cuts without conscious effort, that solves problems while you dream. I remember a woman who came to me in despair. She'd been trying to overcome fear for months, fear of failure, fear of judgment. She'd been affirming, visualizing, doing everything during the day, but nothing seemed to stick. I asked her one question. What are you thinking about as you fall asleep? She looked stunned. Well, I usually worry about the next day. I review everything that went wrong. I replay conversations. There it was. She was undoing all her work with those last critical moments. She was essentially programming fear as her closing thought. I gave her the simplest instruction. Change only your last thought. That's it. Before sleep, regardless of what happened during the day, say just one thing. I am at peace. Tomorrow unfolds perfectly. Nothing more. 3 weeks later, she returned transformed. Not just calmer, actually experiencing different circumstances. Opportunities appeared. Conversations went smoothly. It's like the universe shifted, she said. I smiled. The universe hadn't shifted. Her subconscious had. She'd finally stopped contradicting herself. She'd aligned her last thought with her desire, and in sleep, that thought had grown roots. This is why I'm so insistent about this practice. You can do everything else wrong, worry all day, doubt your dreams, stumble through fear, but if you get those last moments right, you're still moving forward. You're still impressing the one mind that matters. Your subconscious doesn't care about your day. It only cares about what you give it in that sacred twilight. Think of it this way. Your subconscious is like a master gardener working through the night. While you sleep, it tends to whatever seeds you planted before closing your eyes. If you planted weeds, worry, fear, resentment, that's what it waters. If you planted roses, abundance, health, peace, those are the blossoms you'll wake to find. Most people don't realize they're gardening at all. They stumble into bed carrying the entire day on their shoulders. The argument with their spouse, the tight deadline, the bill they can't pay, the body that aches, and they wonder why they wake up exhausted, why their circumstances never change, why life feels like pushing a boulder uphill. You see, the subconscious doesn't take vacations. It doesn't clock out at 5. It's always working, always creating, always manifesting, but it can only work with the materials you supply. And the materials you supply before sleep? Those are the blueprint for tomorrow. I've watched this principle transform lives in the most dramatic ways. I once knew a woman who came to me with chronic insomnia. She'd lie awake for hours, her mind racing through everything that had gone wrong, everything that could go wrong. Her health was deteriorating. Her relationships were strained. She felt trapped in a cycle she couldn't break. I gave her one instruction: before you close your eyes, repeat this phrase: I sleep in peace, and I wake in joy. Nothing else, just that. She looked at me like I'd suggested she fly to the moon. But she was desperate, so she tried it. The first night, her mind rebelled. Old thoughts crashed in like waves. But she kept returning to the phrase, gently, persistently, like calling a child back from distraction. Within a week, she was sleeping through the night. Within a month, her entire demeanor had shifted. The circumstances of her life hadn't magically changed overnight, but her relationship to those circumstances had transformed completely. She'd stopped feeding the beast of anxiety before sleep, and the beast had quietly starved. This brings us to a profound truth that most people miss entirely. Your subconscious mind doesn't wait for perfect conditions to start working. It doesn't need your permission, your approval, or your complete understanding. It simply responds to the habitual patterns you feed it. Think of it this way. If you plant tomato seeds in your garden, you don't stand over them arguing with the soil about whether tomatoes will grow. You don't need to understand photosynthesis, cellular respiration, or the complex chemistry happening beneath the surface. The soil doesn't care about your doubts. It responds to what you've planted. Your subconscious mind operates with this same impartial efficiency. It takes the seeds of thought you plant before sleep and grows them in the dark soil of your deeper mind. Whether those seeds produce flowers or weeds is entirely up to you. I've watched people sabotage their own success by treating their nighttime thoughts as inconsequential. They'll spend thousands on courses, hire coaches, read every self-help book on the market, but then completely undermine all that effort by falling asleep to thoughts of failure, inadequacy, and fear. It's like hiring a personal trainer and then eating poison right before bed. The poison wins every time. Here's what I want you to understand with absolute clarity. The last 5 minutes before sleep are more powerful than 5 hours of desperate daytime effort. This isn't mysticism. This is practical psychology. When you're drowsy, your conscious mind's filter weakens. The critical, analytical part of you that says that's impossible or I'm not good enough starts to fade. And in that twilight state, suggestions slip directly into your subconscious mind with almost no resistance. This is why affirmations muttered half-heartedly during your morning commute often produce minimal results, while the same affirmations whispered with feeling as you drift to sleep can reshape your entire reality. Timing matters, state matters, the receptivity of your mind matters enormously. I knew a salesman who'd been stuck at mediocre performance for years. He attended every sales seminar available. He memorized scripts. He practiced his pitch until it was flawless. Nothing changed. His numbers stayed stubbornly average. Then I asked him one simple question. What's the last thought you have before falling asleep? He looked uncomfortable and finally admitted that he replayed his failures from the day, worried about tomorrow's rejections, and mentally rehearsed all the reasons prospects wouldn't buy from him. Every single night, he was programming himself for failure in the most powerful programming window available to him. I told him, "You've been doing 2 hours of negative self-hypnosis every single night for years, then wondering why 15 minutes of affirmations in the morning aren't working." The revelation hit him like a thunderbolt. We completely restructured his evening routine. Instead of mental torture sessions, he began a pre-sleep practice that changed everything. He would lie in bed and replay the day's successes, no matter how small. He visualized tomorrow's sales calls going perfectly. He repeated the phrase, "I am a magnet for ideal clients who are eager to invest in their success." Within 3 weeks, his sales doubled. Within 2 months, he was the top producer in his company. His manager asked what sales training he'd attended. He smiled and said, "I attended the Joseph Murphy School of Sleep Programming." Nothing about his product knowledge changed. Nothing about his sales technique changed. The only thing that transformed was what he impressed upon his subconscious mind in those critical moments before sleep. You see, your subconscious mind is incredibly literal. It doesn't judge, doesn't argue, doesn't question. It simply accepts what you persistently think and feel as true, then works tirelessly to make your outer world match your inner convictions. If you fall asleep feeling like a failure, your subconscious says, "Understood. Failure is what we're creating." If you fall asleep feeling prosperous, healthy, and successful, your subconscious says, "Perfect. That's the blueprint I'll follow." This is why the affirmations you make must be accompanied by feeling. Words alone are not enough. You must generate the emotion of the wish fulfilled. When you affirm, I am financially abundant, you cannot simultaneously feel broke and desperate. The feeling is the fertilizer that allows the seed of your word to take root in the subconscious soil. This is why so many people fail with affirmations. They repeat the words mechanically, like parrots reciting sounds without meaning. They say I am healthy while their body tenses with anxiety about their symptoms. They declare I am loved while their heart aches with loneliness. The words and the feeling are at war with each other, and the feeling always wins. The subconscious mind responds to feeling tone, not to hollow syllables. Think of it this way. If I handed you a glass of water and told you it was the finest wine, would your taste buds be fooled? Of course not. Your senses would immediately detect the truth. Similarly, your subconscious mind cannot be deceived by words that lack emotional conviction. It tastes the feeling behind your thoughts. When you pray or affirm, you must feel the reality of what you're declaring. If you're affirming abundance, you must cultivate the feeling of already having enough, of being secure, of breathing easily without financial panic. If you're affirming health, you must generate the feeling of vitality, of strength coursing through your limbs, of ease in your body. This doesn't mean denying current circumstances, it means refusing to give them dominion over your inner state. I've watched people transform their lives not because they found better affirmations, but because they learned to feel differently. A woman came to me once, desperate for employment after months of searching. She had been affirming, I have a wonderful job, dozens of times daily, yet nothing changed. When I asked her how she felt during these affirmations, she admitted she felt like a liar. Every word was accompanied by a sinking sensation of hopelessness. I taught her a different approach. Instead of forcing herself to repeat words she couldn't believe, I asked her to remember a time when she felt genuinely confident and valued. She recalled a moment years earlier when she'd solved a difficult problem at work and received heartfelt praise. I had her dwell in that memory, recreating the feeling of competence and appreciation. Only when she could generate that feeling would she quietly whisper, I am valued, my talents are needed. Within 3 weeks, she had 2 job offers. The external circumstances hadn't changed first, her internal state changed first, and the external world rearranged itself to match. This is the secret that most miss. Feeling is the language of the subconscious. Your deeper mind doesn't understand English, French, or Mandarin. It understands emotion. It responds to the vibrational quality of your inner state. That's why affirmations delivered with fear produce fearful results. That's why prayers whispered in desperation often seem to go unanswered. You're sending mixed signals. Your words say one thing, but your emotional broadcast says another, and it's the emotion that wins every time. Think of a time when someone told you they loved you, but their voice was cold, their eyes distant. Did you believe the words? Of course not. You felt the truth beneath the statement. Your subconscious operates the same way. It reads what you times feel asterisk, not what you times say asterisk. This is where most people sabotage themselves without even knowing it. They repeat their affirmations like prisoners reciting their sentence. I am prosperous. I am prosperous. I am prosperous. But inside they're terrified. Inside they're scanning their bank account between each repetition. Inside they're thinking, this isn't working. I'm still broke. What's wrong with me? And so the subconscious receives the real message. Fear, doubt, scarcity. And it says, understood. More of that coming right up. You must learn to infuse your mental images with the feeling of the wish fulfilled, not the feeling of wanting it, not the hope that maybe someday it might happen, the feeling of already having it, the quiet confidence, the inner knowing, the relaxed certainty that comes when something is simply done. When you think of your desire, does your chest tighten with longing? That's wanting. Does your stomach flutter with anxiety? That's doubt. But when you can rest in your imagination and feel peaceful, grateful, quietly satisfied, as if the whole matter is settled and there's nothing left to prove or chase, that's when you've found the frequency. I've watched people transform their entire lives when they finally grasped this principle. One woman came to me drowning in debt, repeating affirmations until her voice was hoarse. I asked her, how do you feel when you say these words? She admitted, desperate, afraid, embarrassed. I said, stop the affirmations. Just for now, stop all of it. I taught her instead to sit quietly before sleep and remember a time when she felt truly secure. A moment from childhood, perhaps, when she had no bills, no worries, just the simple feeling of being safe and cared for. I told her to steep herself in that feeling, to let it saturate her awareness. Only then, from that place of peace, to gently introduce the idea, I am financially secure. Within weeks, unexpected money began flowing to her. Not because the words changed, because the frequency changed. This is why I urge you, never speak against yourself, because your subconscious mind doesn't argue, it doesn't evaluate, it doesn't say, oh, they're just joking. It accepts, it records, it creates. When you say, I'm so broke, your subconscious hears that as an instruction. When you say, I always mess things up, it begins arranging circumstances to prove you right. When you say, I'll never find love, you are literally commanding your deeper mind to repel it. Your words are not idle chatter. They are creative forces. I once counseled a man who came to me complaining of chronic illness. He had been to doctors, specialists, healers of every kind. Nothing worked. And as we spoke, I noticed something. Every few minutes he would say things like, I'm sick and tired of this, or this is killing me, or I can't stomach it anymore. I stopped him gently and said, do you hear what you're saying? You're giving your subconscious mind direct orders to make you sick, tired, unable to digest life. He was stunned. He had no idea. I gave him one simple practice. For 30 days, speak only health. No complaints about symptoms. No casual remarks about being exhausted. Only affirmations of vitality and strength. He resisted at first. But what if I really do feel tired? He asked. I said, then say I am renewing my energy now. Say every cell in my body is being restored. Do not give voice to the condition you wish to leave behind. Within 2 weeks, his energy returned. Within a month, the chronic symptoms he'd carried for years began to dissolve. Not because he pretended they didn't exist, but because he stopped feeding them with his words. He stopped watering the weeds and began watering the flowers. This is the law. What you affirm, you attract. What you deny power to, begins to fade. So examine your speech. Listen to yourself as though you were a scientist studying data. What are you saying about your health? Your finances? Your relationships? Your future? Are you speaking life? Or death? Abundance? Or lack? Love? Or fear? Because I promise you this, your subconscious is listening, and it is far more obedient than you realize. So what does this mean for you, right now, in the life you're living? It means you must become ruthlessly honest about what you're feeding your subconscious mind. Not tomorrow. Not when things get better. Now, look at your day. What do you consume? What do you watch? Who do you listen to? What conversations do you replay in your mind as you fall asleep at night? Because here's what most people don't realize. Your subconscious doesn't distinguish between what you experience directly and what you vividly imagine. It accepts both with equal weight. This is why a nightmare can wake you with a racing heart, drenched in sweat, even though nothing actually happened to your physical body. Your subconscious believed it, and your body responded. This is the mechanism. This is the power you've been given. So, when you spend your evening scrolling through news that fills you with anxiety, your subconscious records it. When you engage in conversations saturated with complaint and limitation, your subconscious accepts that as instruction. When you fall asleep replaying every mistake, every rejection, every disappointment, you are literally programming yourself for more of the same. You are the gardener of your own mind. And right now, I'm asking you to look at what you've been planting. I've met people who wonder why their lives feel like a constant struggle, yet every word out of their mouth is about how hard things are. Every thought is colored by doubt. Every prayer is polluted with fear. They say they want prosperity, but they think poverty. They say they want health, but they imagine disease. They say they want love, but they replay old wounds. And they wonder why nothing changes. Let me be clear. I'm not suggesting you deny reality. I'm not asking you to pretend that challenges don't exist. What I am telling you is that dwelling on them, rehearsing them, giving them the stage in your mind, this is not wisdom. This is self-sabotage. The subconscious mind is a servant, a faithful, tireless servant. but it will serve whatever master you give it. Feed it fear, and it will manufacture more situations that validate your fear. Feed it faith, and it will arrange circumstances that confirm your faith. You are not a victim of your thoughts. You are their author. And here's the beautiful part. You can change the story anytime you choose. Let me tell you about a woman named Claire who discovered this truth in the most unexpected way. She had spent years trapped in a cycle of financial anxiety. Every morning she'd wake up and her first thought would be, I don't have enough. Before her feet touched the floor, before she'd even opened her eyes fully, that thought had already set the tone for her entire day. She came to one of my lectures, skeptical but desperate. I asked her a simple question. When did you decide that scarcity would be your morning greeting? She looked confused. I didn't decide anything, she said. It's just true. But here's what I helped her see. Somewhere along the way, probably in childhood, she had accepted a belief about money. Maybe she heard her parents arguing about bills. Maybe she experienced lack and her young mind concluded, this is how life is. That belief became a seed. And every morning, with that first anxious thought, she was watering it. I gave her an assignment. For 30 days, before she allowed any other thought to take root, she was to say, I am surrounded by abundance. Money flows to me easily and naturally. The first week, she admitted it felt ridiculous, like lying to herself. But I explained, you've been lying to yourself for years with the opposite statement. At least try a different story. By the third week, something shifted. She noticed opportunities she'd been blind to before. A former colleague mentioned a consulting project. She found money in an old account she'd forgotten about. Small things, but they were proof that her inner world was changing and her outer world was responding. By day 30, she didn't just say the words. She felt them. Her body had begun to believe what her mind was declaring. And within 6 months, her income had doubled. Not through struggle or force, but through alignment. This is what most people miss. They think affirmations are about repeating hollow words into the void. But your subconscious doesn't respond to noise. It responds to times feeling asterisk. It responds to conviction. It responds to the emotional state you generate when you speak. When you say, I am prosperous, but you times feel times poor, anxious, or desperate, you're not impressing anything onto your subconscious. You're just creating static. The real work happens when your affirmation and your feeling become one. When the words you speak create a corresponding emotional climate in your inner world. Let me tell you about a man I once counseled who was trapped in a cycle of resentment. His business had failed years prior, and he blamed his former partner. Every conversation we had circled back to that betrayal. He lived in the past, replaying the injustice over and over. And because he did, he attracted more situations that reinforced that narrative. More betrayals. More disappointments. More proof that the world was against him. I asked him a simple question. What would you rather be right about? That people can't be trusted? Or that you are capable of building something new? He paused. The question disarmed him. Because he realized that he had been so committed to being right about his pain, he had made it impossible for anything new to enter his life. I gave him an affirmation. Not a complicated one. Just this. I release the past and walk freely into my good. At first, he resisted. He said it felt dishonest. How could he release something that still hurt? But I reminded him that the subconscious doesn't argue. It accepts what you persistently impress upon it. So he began. Every morning and every night, he repeated those words. And crucially, he visualized himself closing a door on the old story and opening a new one. Within weeks, something shifted. He stopped talking about the past. His energy changed. Opportunities began to appear. A former client reached out. A new partnership formed. Not because the universe suddenly decided to reward him, but because he had changed the inner patterns that were dictating his outer results. And here's what most people miss in that crucial moment of change. They think the work is done. They think, great, I've shifted my beliefs, I've changed my thoughts, now I can sit back and watch the magic happen. But transformation isn't a one-time event. It's a daily practice, a moment-by-moment choice. Your subconscious mind is like a garden. You can't just plant seeds once and expect a harvest forever. You have to tend to it, water it, pull the weeds, protect it from invasive thoughts that creep in through the back fence of your awareness. Let me share something that happened to me years ago when I was first exploring these principles. I had worked diligently on affirming abundance, on feeling wealthy in consciousness, on embodying the state of prosperity, and things were shifting. Opportunities were appearing. Money was flowing more easily. Then one morning, I woke up to unexpected news. A significant payment I was counting on had fallen through, and in that moment, I felt the old familiar panic trying to claw its way back into my mind, that tightness in the chest, that voice saying, "See, it was too good to be true. You're back where you started." I had a choice in that moment. We always have a choice. I could have let that one circumstance convince me that nothing had really changed, that my mental work had been useless, that I was destined to struggle after all. Or I could recognize it for what it was, a test, not from some external force, but from my own consciousness. A chance to prove to myself that my new beliefs were real, that they could withstand temporary contradiction. I chose to return to my inner throne. I chose to feel, despite the appearance, that I was still provided for, that this was simply a detour, not a destination, that my subconscious mind was still working on my behalf, arranging circumstances in ways I couldn't yet see. Within 3 days, 2 unexpected payments came through from sources I had completely forgotten about, and the total exceeded what I had lost. This is what conviction looks like in practice. Not blind optimism, not denial of what's happening, but an unshakable knowing that your dominant mental state determines your experience, regardless of temporary fluctuations in the external world. I've watched people in the darkest circumstances, financial ruin, health crises, relationships shattered beyond recognition, completely transform their reality through this principle. Not overnight, not through magical thinking, but through the steady, disciplined application of mental law. Here's what they understood that most people miss. Your subconscious doesn't care about your circumstances. It only responds to your habitual thinking. Feed it faith, and it will find a way. Feed it fear, and it will find evidence to confirm that fear. The external world is always lagging behind your internal world. Always. By the time something manifests in your physical experience, it's already old news to your subconscious mind. It was created weeks, months, sometimes years ago in the invisible realm of thought and feeling. This is why some people seem to move from one disaster to another, while others seem to attract opportunity after opportunity. It's not luck. It's not privilege. It's the natural outworking of habitual mental patterns. Let me give you something practical you can do right now, today, to begin shifting this pattern in your own life. Before you sleep tonight, spend 5 minutes impressing your subconscious with the reality you want to experience. Not the reality you're currently seeing, the reality you choose to create. Don't beg, don't plead, don't desperately wish for things to be different. Simply affirm with quiet confidence, "I am now living in the reality of my answered prayer. What I have impressed upon my subconscious is now taking form in my experience." Feel the relief, feel the gratitude, feel the naturalness of your desire fulfilled. Let your nervous system relax into the knowing that it is done. Your subconscious accepts what you feel to be true, not what you say with your lips, but what you accept emotionally. This is the key that most people miss entirely. You can affirm prosperity 1,000 times, but if you feel lack, your subconscious registers lack. You can declare health, but if you feel disease, your subconscious responds to the feeling, not the words. This is why affirmations alone often fail. They're working at the level of conscious thought without engaging the deeper emotional conviction that moves the subconscious mind. The technique that works is what I call feeling the wish fulfilled. You must enter into the emotional state of your desire already realized. You must wear the consciousness of the answered prayer. When you do this consistently, particularly in that drowsy state before sleep, when your conscious mind releases its grip and your subconscious becomes highly impressionable, you are literally reprogramming your automatic mental responses. Let me share with you a case that perfectly illustrates this principle. A woman came to me utterly devastated. Her husband had left her for another woman. She was consumed with bitterness, resentment, and a crushing sense of abandonment. Every thought was poisoned with hurt. Every feeling was saturated with rejection. I asked her a simple question. "What do you want?" She said, "I want my husband back. I want my marriage restored. I want to be happy again." Then, I told her, You must stop living in the problem and start living in the solution. You must stop feeling abandoned and start feeling loved. You must stop seeing yourself as rejected and start seeing yourself as cherished. She protested, as many do. But how can I feel loved when I'm alone? How can I feel cherished when he's with someone else? Isn't that just lying to myself? And here is where most people stumble. They think that feeling is a response to circumstance, when the truth is precisely the opposite. Feeling creates circumstance. Your emotional state is not the result of your world, it is the cause of your world. I instructed her to practice a specific technique every night before sleep. She was to imagine her husband beside her, not to see it vaguely, but to feel it completely, to feel the warmth of his presence, to sense the reality of their reconciliation, to experience the peace and joy of their restored relationship. Most importantly, she was to sustain this feeling until she fell asleep within it, so that her subconscious mind would be saturated with this new impression. She did this faithfully for 3 weeks. During this time, something remarkable happened, not first in her outer world, but in her inner world. The bitterness began to dissolve. The obsessive thinking quieted. She felt a peace she hadn't known in months. And then, without any external action on her part, her husband called. They met. They talked. Within 2 months, they were reconciled, and their marriage became stronger than it had ever been. Now, some would call this coincidence. Others might attribute it to fate or luck. But I tell you plainly, it was the law in operation. She changed her inner state, and her outer world rearranged itself to match. The practical question you're probably asking right now is this: how do I make this work in my own life? How do I bridge the gap between understanding this principle intellectually and actually experiencing its transformative power? The answer lies in consistent, deliberate practice. Not occasionally, not when you happen to remember, but as a daily discipline, as natural and necessary as breathing. Let me give you a method I've shared with thousands of people over the years, one that has produced remarkable results time and time again. It's beautifully simple, yet profoundly effective. Before you sleep each night, enter into a relaxed, drowsy state. This twilight period between waking and sleeping is when your subconscious mind is most receptive, most impressionable. The critical, analytical faculty of your conscious mind begins to recede, and the gateway to your deeper self opens wide. In this receptive state, construct a single scene in your imagination. Not a long, complicated story. Just one simple scene that would naturally occur, times after times your desire has been fulfilled. Make it brief. Make it vivid. Make it imply that your wish is already accomplished. If you desire financial freedom, perhaps you see yourself holding a bank statement showing abundant funds. If you want a loving relationship, maybe you feel a wedding ring on your finger. If you seek perfect health, you might imagine your doctor congratulating you on your excellent recovery. The key is this: don't strain, don't force, don't try too hard. Gently loop this scene through your mind, adding sensory details. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel? Most importantly, what is the times, emotional quality times of this fulfilled desire? Repeat this scene night after night until it takes on the tones of reality, until it feels natural, until something within you quietly accepts it as true. That's when you know the impression has been made. That's when you know your subconscious has received its instructions. Then, and this is crucial times, let it go, asterisk. Release it completely. Trust the process. The farmer doesn't dig up his seeds every morning to check their progress. He plants, he waters, and he trusts the laws of growth to do their work beneath the surface. You must do the same. Plant your desire through this nightly practice. Nourish it with feeling and conviction. Then trust the creative power within you to bring it forth in ways you cannot yet imagine. Now, let me address something that troubles many who embark upon this practice. You may wonder, how long must I persist? When will I see results? These questions arise from the impatient, conscious mind that wants immediate confirmation, immediate proof. But the subconscious works in its own time, according to laws that transcend our earthly understanding of chronology. There is no universal timetable. For some, a desire manifests within days. For others, weeks or months may pass before the first signs appear. The timing depends on many factors: the depth of your conviction, the absence of inner conflict, the magnitude of what you seek, and how fully you have impressed your subconscious mind. But here is what I know with absolute certainty: persistence always wins. The person who returns night after night to their practice, who refuses to be discouraged by outer appearances, who maintains their inner vision regardless of circumstances, this person cannot fail. It is impossible. You are working with a law as reliable as gravity itself. I have witnessed the most remarkable transformations in individuals who simply would not give up. There was a woman who came to me, burdened by debt, seeing no way forward. Every night for 3 months, she practiced exactly as I have instructed you. She would enter her drowsy state and feel the relief, the freedom, the joy of being debt-free. She imagined opening her bank statements with peace instead of dread. She felt gratitude for financial security as though it already existed. For weeks, nothing seemed to change in her outer world. Her situation appeared as dire as ever, but she did not waver. She understood that transformation was occurring beneath the surface, in the invisible realm where all creation begins. And then, as if by a series of miracles, though they were not miracles at all, but natural law in operation, circumstances began to shift. An unexpected opportunity arose in her work. A skill she possessed suddenly became valuable in ways she hadn't anticipated. Within 6 months, she was completely free of debt and living in a state of abundance she had once thought impossible. What made the difference? Not wishful thinking, not desperate hoping, but the consistent, faithful impression of her desired state upon her subconscious mind, repeated night after night until it became the dominant pattern within her consciousness. And what happened? Within weeks, her external world began to mirror her internal transformation. Her husband, without any nagging or confrontation from her, began to open up emotionally. He started sharing his feelings, asking about her day, showing genuine interest in her life. He surprised her with small gestures of affection that had been absent for years. Was this coincidence? Was this luck? No. This was law. This was the automatic, inevitable response of the outer world to the inner pattern she had established through persistent mental discipline. You see, when you change the mental photograph you carry of another person, you change your entire vibrational relationship with them. You stop broadcasting criticism and disappointment. You stop emanating the energy of lack and frustration. Instead, you begin to radiate the confident expectation of harmony, love, and mutual respect. And other people, whether they realize it consciously or not, respond to this shift. They feel it. They sense the change in your energy field, in the way you look at them, in the silent expectations you hold. And gradually, almost mysteriously, they begin to conform to the new image you hold of them. This is not manipulation. This is not control. This is simply the recognition that all relationships exist first in consciousness before they manifest in physical interaction. Change the consciousness, and the relationship must change. Now, I want to address something important here because I know what some of you might be thinking. You might be saying, "But Joseph, what if I've tried this and it didn't work? What if I've visualized and affirmed and nothing changed?" Let me be very direct with you. If your technique failed, it was not because the law failed. The law never fails. It cannot fail any more than the law of gravity can fail. If your results were not what you desired, it was because of one or more of these reasons. First, you may have been working against yourself with contradictory thoughts. Second, you may not have persisted long enough. Remember, the mental seed must be nourished repeatedly. A farmer doesn't plant a seed and dig it up the next day to see if it's growing. He waters it, tends the soil, and trusts the natural process. Your mental seed requires the same patience and care. Some prayers are answered swiftly within hours or days. Others take weeks or months to materialize. This doesn't mean the law isn't working. It means the conditions in your deeper mind are still being prepared, old patterns are being dissolved, new channels are being formed. I've seen people abandon their mental work just days before their demonstration would have appeared. They gave up at the 11th hour because they couldn't see immediate physical evidence. This is tragic. Would you stop watering a garden just before the first shoots break through the soil? The invisible work was happening all along. Your persistence in affirming, visualizing, and feeling the reality of your desire is what brings it from the invisible realm into the visible world. Third, you may have lacked true conviction. Going through the motions isn't enough. Repeating affirmations while your heart says this won't work is like trying to drive a car with one foot on the gas and one on the brake. Your subconscious accepts what you truly believe, not what you merely say. This is why feeling is the secret. When you can feel the reality of your desire, when you can generate the emotion you would experience having already received it, you impress your subconscious deeply. Ask yourself honestly, do I really believe this can happen for me, or am I just hoping? Hope is wonderful, but conviction is what moves mountains. Conviction comes from understanding the law, from seeing it work in small things first, from building your faith gradually through experience. Fourth, you may have been too vague or general in your request. I want to be happy is admirable but imprecise. Your subconscious works best with clear, specific images. Instead of, I want prosperity, define what prosperity means to you. See the specific bank balance. Feel yourself paying bills easily. Imagine the freedom you'll experience. The clearer your mental picture, the more powerfully your subconscious can work to manifest it. This principle of specificity applies to every area of your life. If you're seeking health, don't just affirm, I am healthy. Instead, visualize yourself moving with ease, your body strong and vibrant, perhaps running up a flight of stairs without breathlessness, or waking up each morning feeling refreshed and energized. Feel the sensation of vitality coursing through your veins. When you seek love or better relationships, picture the specific qualities you desire. See yourself in harmonious conversations. Feel the warmth of genuine connection. Imagine the joy of mutual understanding and respect. Your subconscious responds to these detailed impressions far more readily than to vague wishes. I've counseled countless individuals who complained that their prayers went unanswered, only to discover they were essentially sending confused signals to their subconscious mind. One woman told me she prayed for financial help but simultaneously held vivid mental pictures of herself in poverty, telling friends, I'll probably never get ahead. She was programming failure while asking for success. The subconscious, accepting the dominant impression, continued to create circumstances aligned with her fearful expectations rather than her stated desires. This brings us to another crucial understanding. Your subconscious mind accepts the dominant thought-feeling combination you consistently present to it. It doesn't judge whether this is what you consciously want, it simply proceeds to externalize whatever you've impressed upon it most deeply. This is why worry is so dangerous. When you worry, you're creating detailed mental movies of exactly what you don't want, and you're adding powerful emotional energy to these images. You're essentially directing your subconscious to create the very circumstances you fear. Worry is negative goal setting. Instead, whenever you catch yourself worrying, immediately redirect that creative energy. Take that same capacity for detailed visualization and apply it to the outcome you desire. If you're worried about an upcoming presentation, stop picturing yourself forgetting your words or facing criticism. Instead, see yourself speaking confidently. Notice your audience engaged and responsive. Feel the satisfaction of delivering your message effectively. Your subconscious doesn't understand the concept of don't. If I tell you don't think of a purple elephant, what immediately appears in your mind? The purple elephant, of course. Similarly, when you think I don't want to be sick, your subconscious receives the dominant image, sickness. Rephrase everything in positive terms. I am healthy, strong, and vibrant. Your subconscious mind doesn't argue with you. It doesn't question whether what you're saying is currently true. It simply accepts the impressions you give it and begins working to make them your reality. This is why affirmations must be stated as present fact, not future hope. Don't say I will be successful. That places success perpetually out of reach, always in some distant tomorrow that never arrives. Instead, declare, I am successful now. Feel it as true in this moment. The subconscious responds to feeling, not just words. You can repeat I am confident 1,000 times, but if you're simultaneously feeling anxious and doubtful, those feelings will override your words every time. The emotion is the power source. The feeling is what impresses the subconscious. When you affirm something, close your eyes and feel it as already accomplished. If you're affirming prosperity, feel the relief, the freedom, the joy of having your needs met abundantly. If you're affirming health, feel the vitality coursing through your body, the strength in your limbs, the clarity in your mind. Many people affirm half-heartedly, as if they're trying to convince themselves of something they don't really believe. This creates inner conflict. The conscious mind says one thing while the subconscious feels another. And in that battle, the subconscious always wins because it's far more powerful. The solution is to affirm with conviction and feeling during the drowsy state before sleep, when the conscious mind's critical faculty is relaxed. In that state, Your affirmations slip past the gatekeeper of logic and sink deep into the subconscious, where they take root and grow. I've witnessed remarkable transformations from this simple practice. A man affirmed health and vitality every night before sleep, feeling himself strong and well. Within weeks, chronic ailments that had plagued him for years began to disappear. His doctor was baffled, but the man understood. He had reprogrammed his subconscious mind. The principle at work here is remarkably simple yet profoundly powerful. Your subconscious mind accepts as true whatever you repeatedly impress upon it with feeling and conviction. It doesn't argue. It doesn't question. It simply accepts and then proceeds to bring into your experience whatever you've planted in its fertile soil. This is why the quality of your habitual thinking is so crucial. Every thought is a seed. Every mental image is an impression on the sensitive plate of your subconscious mind. And just as a photographer's plate faithfully reproduces whatever image is exposed upon it, so too does your subconscious faithfully reproduce the mental images you consistently hold. Consider the businessman who was facing bankruptcy. His external circumstances seemed hopeless. Creditors were demanding payment. His business was failing. Fear and anxiety consumed his waking hours. But instead of accepting defeat, he began a systematic program of mental reconditioning. Each night, before drifting into sleep, he would imagine himself free from debt, his business thriving, money flowing abundantly to him from all directions. He felt the relief, the joy, the satisfaction of financial freedom. He gave thanks for his prosperity as though it were already manifest. He persisted in this practice despite no visible change in his circumstances. Then something remarkable happened. Within a month, an old friend contacted him about a business opportunity he'd never considered. A debt he'd written off as uncollectible was suddenly repaid. New clients appeared seemingly out of nowhere. Within 6 months, his entire financial situation had completely reversed. He moved from the brink of bankruptcy to genuine prosperity. Was this coincidence? Was it luck? No. It was the law of mind. He had impressed upon his subconscious mind a new pattern, a new set of beliefs. And his subconscious, being the faithful servant it is, proceeded to orchestrate circumstances, attract opportunities, and guide him to actions that brought his mental images into physical reality. This same principle works in every area of life. There is no limitation to what you can accomplish when you understand and apply this law correctly. Now, I want to share with you one of the most powerful techniques I have discovered in over 40 years of studying the mind, the method of scientific prayer. This is not begging. This is not pleading with some distant deity to grant you favors. This is the scientific use of your imagination and feeling to impress your subconscious mind with the reality you wish to experience. When you pray scientifically, you do not pray for something, you pray from the consciousness of already having it. You move into the feeling, the awareness, the sensation of your wish fulfilled. You close your eyes and you imagine the scene that would naturally follow the fulfillment of your desire. You make it real. You make it vivid. You engage all your senses in this inner drama. Let me give you a concrete example. A woman once came to me who had been suffering from chronic anxiety for years. She could not sleep. She could not relax. Her mind was constantly racing with fearful thoughts. I taught her this technique. Each night before sleep, she would lie in her bed and imagine a trusted friend standing before her, saying with joy and conviction, "I'm so happy to see you looking so peaceful and relaxed. You've completely overcome that anxiety." She would hear those words. She would feel the relief washing over her. She would sense the warmth of her friend's smile. She would accept this scene as real, as already accomplished in consciousness. At first, her conscious mind resisted. It said, "This is foolish. You're still anxious. This isn't working." But she persisted. Night after night, she returned to that scene. She felt it. She accepted it. She impressed it upon her subconscious mind. Within 3 weeks, the transformation began. The racing thoughts slowed, the tension in her body released. Sleep came naturally. Within 2 months, she was completely free of the anxiety that had plagued her for years. Her transformation wasn't about fighting her condition. It was about replacing the mental image that was creating it. This principle applies to every area of your life. Your subconscious doesn't distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. It accepts what you consistently impress upon it and works tirelessly to bring it into your physical reality. I knew a salesman who was terrified of rejection. Every morning before work, his stomach would knot with anxiety. He'd walk into appointments already defeated, already expecting to hear no. And of course, that's exactly what he heard. His fear was a self-fulfilling prophecy. I taught him a simple technique. Each night before sleep, he would imagine himself walking confidently into an office. He would see the client smiling, nodding, saying yes. He would feel the handshake, hear the words, "This is exactly what we need," and experience the satisfaction of closing the sale. For 10 minutes each night, he lived that success in his imagination. He didn't fight his fear or try to force confidence. He simply gave his subconscious a new pattern to follow. Within 3 weeks, his entire demeanor changed. He walked differently. He spoke differently. The anxiety that had controlled him for years simply dissolved. His sales numbers tripled in 2 months, not because he learned new techniques, but because he had reprogrammed the creative mechanism within him. Your subconscious is always listening, always accepting, always creating. The question is, what are you feeding it? Every thought you think repeatedly, every image you hold in your mind consistently, every feeling you experience regularly, these become the instructions your subconscious follows. It doesn't judge whether these instructions serve you or harm you, it simply obeys. When you say, "I'm always struggling with money," your subconscious says, "Yes, that's our instruction. I'll make sure that remains true." When you think, "I never get the opportunities others get," your subconscious says, "Understood. I'll filter out opportunities and highlight evidence that confirms this belief." When you feel, "I'm not worthy of love," your subconscious says, "Message received. I'll sabotage relationships and create circumstances that validate this feeling." This isn't punishment, it's simply the law of mind in action. Your subconscious is neutral, like soil that grows whatever seed you plant, whether that seed is a rose or a weed. The beautiful truth is this. The moment you change your inner conviction, your outer world begins to shift. Not someday, not eventually, immediately. I've seen this countless times. A woman came to me once, trapped in a cycle of poverty consciousness. Every morning she'd wake up and immediately think, "I'll never have enough. Money always runs out." And her life reflected this perfectly. Unexpected bills, car breakdowns, job losses. I taught her a simple technique. Every night before sleep, when her subconscious was most receptive, she would repeat, "I am grateful for the endless abundance flowing to me now. I am a magnet for prosperity." At first, she felt like a fraud saying these words. Her conscious mind protested, "This isn't true. Look at your bank account." But I told her what I'm telling you now. Your subconscious doesn't argue. It doesn't debate. It simply accepts what you persistently impress upon it. Within 3 weeks, something remarkable happened. She received a call about a job she'd applied for months ago and forgotten about. The salary was double what she'd been making. Coincidence? No. Consciousness creating circumstance. See, when she changed her inner conversation, she changed her energy, her awareness, her actions. She started noticing opportunities she'd walked past 1,000 times before. She carried herself differently. She spoke with new confidence. The universe hadn't changed. She had. This is the mechanism. Your subconscious mind, impressed with a belief, moves heaven and earth to make it manifest. It influences your thoughts, your decisions, your perception. It orchestrates meetings that seem accidental. It creates what others call luck. But there's nothing supernatural about it. It's law, as reliable as gravity. The question isn't whether this law works. The question is, what are you impressing upon your subconscious right now? What is your habitual inner conversation? What do you say to yourself in those quiet moments? Because that conversation, that internal narrative, is writing the script of your future. Are you telling yourself stories of limitation? Stories of why things can't work out? Stories about how the world is against you, how opportunities are scarce, how success belongs to others but not to you? Or are you telling yourself stories of possibility, stories of growth, stories where you are the hero who overcomes, who learns, who rises? Listen carefully now, because this is where most people get lost in the fog. They think positive thinking means denying reality. They think it means pretending problems don't exist. But that's not what we're doing here at all. What we're doing is choosing the reality we're going to inhabit. You see, There are multiple versions of reality available to you right now. In one version, you're stuck. In another, you're growing. In one version, this challenge destroys you. In another, it strengthens you. Both versions exist as potentials. Your inner conversation determines which one you experience. Let me give you something practical. Start monitoring your self-talk like a scientist observing an experiment. Just notice it. Don't judge it, just notice. What do you say when you make a mistake? What do you say when you look in the mirror? What do you say about your capabilities, your future, your worth? Most people would be horrified if they actually listened to how they talk to themselves. You wouldn't talk to your worst enemy the way you talk to yourself. You're constantly criticizing, doubting, diminishing yourself with your internal dialogue, and then you wonder why your life feels so heavy. Here's what I want you to understand. Your subconscious mind doesn't argue with you. It doesn't fact-check your claims. It simply accepts what you repeatedly tell it and begins to make it true. It's like programming a computer. Whatever code you input, that's what it runs. So if you're constantly inputting the code of limitation, if your inner conversation is filled with "I can't, I'm not, they won't, it's impossible," then your subconscious accepts that as the operating system and produces results that match. But here's the beautiful truth that changes everything. You can change the code. Right now. Today. In this very moment. You're not stuck with the programming you've been running. You're not condemned to repeat the patterns of yesterday. You have within you, right now, the power to rewrite every limiting script, to replace every destructive thought, to transform every negative inner conversation into one that builds, that heals, that creates the life you truly desire. And it starts with awareness. Simply becoming conscious of what you're saying to yourself throughout the day. Most people go through life completely unaware of their inner dialogue. It's just background noise, constant chatter they've learned to tune out. But that chatter is creating your tomorrow, whether you're paying attention or not. So I want you to do something powerful starting today. I want you to become a witness to your own thoughts. Not to judge them, not to fight them, but simply to observe them. Notice what you say to yourself when you make a mistake. Notice the commentary that runs through your mind when you look in the mirror. Notice the stories you tell yourself about your capabilities, your worth, your future. And here's what you'll discover. Most of it isn't even originally yours. It's inherited. It's borrowed. It's the residue of other people's fears and limitations that you've absorbed and mistaken for your own truth. Your mother's anxiety about money. Your father's beliefs about what's possible. Your teacher's assessment of your abilities, your culture's stories about people like you, but none of it has to remain your truth. You can thank these old voices for trying to protect you, and then you can release them. You can choose new thoughts. You can craft new inner conversations. You can speak to yourself the way you would speak to someone you deeply love and believe in, because that's exactly who you are. Replace "I always fail" with "I'm learning and growing stronger with every experience." Replace "I'm not good enough" with "I am worthy and capable exactly as I am." Replace "nothing ever works out for me" with "things are always working out for my highest good."